All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, good evening, everyone. Let's see. All right, so today we don't have any checkpoint, so we don't have to worry about that. That is points. That is some extra time for us, and then there is homework. The next homework. How many people did the optional one? No, the previous one. You did it? Just one? Okay. So the next.
I never turned it in.
Okay. The constructor one. You did it? Okay. Okay. So, well, the next homework is also optional. So if there is time, one of the TAs will go over. Otherwise, we'll just skip it. I mean, given the popularity of optional homeworks, because I would rather spend some extra time on today's lecture. Okay, so those with no checkpoints. Next time's homework is optional, and the homework next, which is optional, is not due next Thursday because of holidays. It's due the week after on Tuesday, okay, December 3rd or whatever that is.
And there's really no need because the optional homework is literally the same homework.
Yeah, it's Burger 2.
With sequelize instead of the or.
Right. So I mean, I only saw one. I saw Irina using sequelize in this one. If you used it, that's also fine.
Oh, I was gonna say, can we use sequelize?
Well, you shouldn't be using, but I just saw one using.
I wanted to. Yeah.
Wanted it.
No, the last time we had a
Yeah.
conversation, you said, "Do it the way you're supposed to."
Right. And that's and so the second homework is actually using sequelize, but that's optional. So we will leave it that. But the thing is, remember, today is the last class before project 2, and actually, let's power through today's class. It's important. Okay, it's really important. The reason it is important is, remember in the first project we did Firebase, but that was optional. In this project, MySQL is not optional. You have to use MySQL. You have to use SQLize. Okay, that is one of the two of the requirements. Okay, it has to have a database, and you should be using SQLize. Okay, so till now we have used SQLize using just one table. In real life, in production, in your projects, you are not going to have one table. You're going to have more than one table, at least two. I'm hoping maybe you have more than two, but at least two tables. Okay, so we need to see how do we connect two tables today. How do we make those association? How do we make joins of those two tables? How do we create those relationships? Okay, so that's why it's important. So I'm going to say we have only 4 activities, but I know 4 is also a lot. So we are going to do activities from 11 to 14. The first 2 are just revision from the previous from the day 1 of SQLize. Okay, if you have been going through the activities, these should be faster. So I'm hoping we spend a lot less time on activity number 11 and 12. Okay, and then I can spend a lot more time on 13 and 14. Okay, because I want to go over the concepts first and then look at the activities. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with activity number 11. Let me give you what you have to do in activity number 11. Okay. There are some things that I would like to change, especially the way the put is done, but we won't worry about that. However, the activity is, we will solve it the way it is given. And then because this activity builds up into all four activities. Okay, we are going to start with 11. 12 is connected, 13 is connected to 12 and 11, and activity number 14 is connected to 13, 12, and 11. Okay, so it is absolutely necessary that we complete each one in order before we get to 13 and 14. Okay, so in this activity, please go ahead and you're going to create the database, just the database, no table. Okay, if you look at your unsolved, you already have the schema. Go ahead and create that database in your MySQL, and then you're going to come back, npm install all the dependencies. Then you're going to go into config.json, right? Why? Because you need to update your database connection. So go ahead into config.json, update the connection, all right, and then go ahead and run this folder. Okay, make sure something comes up, UI, all right. Once that is done, you are going to go into your models folder. Okay, what does models folder have? Everything related to database, right? Our table creation. Okay, our tables are SQLize calls them models. Okay, those go inside the models folder. So right now we have post, but the file is empty. All right, so you're going to write the code, create a post model, right? Run your app again, and this should create a post table in your database. All right, the database is called Blogger. It's going to have one table for now. It's going to be called post. Okay, so you're going to create a table post. Looks like you're going to have two properties. One is going to be title, and one is going to be body. Title and body. Okay, and the data types are going to be, for property you're going to use string, and for body you're going to use text. Okay, once we do with this activity, I would like to know what's the difference between string and text. Pretty straightforward. You can look in the documentation. I just want to make sure that you guys understand what's the difference between string and text when it comes to SQLize. Okay, not JavaScript, not MySQL. They both are different. All right. So look in the documentation for SQLize and see what is the difference between string and text. Okay. Again, this is not JavaScript. This is not Node.js. This is not MySQL. This is SQLize. Okay. SQLize is doing a little bit differently. Okay, so you're going to have, oh, actually 3 columns. So category is also there. So title, body, and category. 3 columns in your post model. Once you are done with this, you should go back, verify the table is created. It should be good. This is bonus. I would like that you guys complete this part also, because again, it's very similar to what we did on Tuesday. You're going to have flags for, so that the title and the body are not null. So you would use allow null, false. Validation of the length, 1 and 160 characters. You would use the validate object. Within that, use the len, L-E-N. Look at the validation documentation again. So these should be fairly quickly, and you should be able to complete the bonus as well. Okay. Any questions? All right. Let's go ahead. Let's start with 10 minutes, and we'll see if you need more time, but I want to make sure everybody is able to complete this. It's not as tricky. Please refer to the previous activity that I did on Tuesday. Very similar. Okay. Just make sure you create your database first. Some people forgot database last time. It's going to give you an error. So make sure the database is there first. Then update your config file, and then go to your models folder.
No, working as it should. Well, if you look at land, number right, but look at so the first number is saying in minimum, right? So if you were to just pass in the first one, then it's going to just say, take the first one. If you just did land 2 by itself, or land 1, then it's going to just say it needs to have at least 1. But there is another issue going on here. Remember, allow null is what type of validation? Well, but like where is that validation coming from? Remember, that's built in, right? Yes. There you go.
All right, let's go ahead and quickly recap this. So what I did was I had my database created. Okay, then I did a npmi, installed all the modules, updated my config file with just the password. Everything else should be good in my development. All right. In this case, if you run it, you should be getting this kind of error. And the reason is my post model is empty. So I haven't done anything. I'm not returning anything. So it gives you an error. So the next part would be to complete this part. Okay, so I did the schema and everything, and then I ran this, and I'm getting this. The problem over here is it's not able to, I'm not returning anything in my model, so that's why it's giving me this error. Okay, so we'll go ahead and create this model. We'll start with our variable const host, okay, and is equal to sequelize what is being passed in dot define. All right. Define function, the first parameter would be the model name. We're going to call it post. And behind the scene is going to create a table posts, right? Plural. The next would be an object, and this object would have all the definition, columns, and everything. Okay. Before I complete this part, let's go ahead and do a return post so that I don't forget this part. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and define all the columns. All right. We'll use the syntax that we saw on Tuesday. We'll have the column name as the property, as the object identifier, and then we'll have all the validations and the type and everything. Okay. So the first column is going to be title. So you know what? I'm going to stop this, otherwise it's going to keep creating a table for now. Okay, so the first would be column would be title. The second is going to be body, and the third is going to be category. Okay. Um, Title is going to be of type string. So you will say type data types dot string. Okay. Body is going to be of type text. Did anybody look up what's the difference between a text and a string in SQLize? Character length. So what's the character length for each one? All right. So what Chris is saying, well, string doesn't have. Oh, sorry. The text is basically unlimited. It doesn't have a limit. 65,500 something. Okay. So the difference between string and text is, string is equivalent of varchar of MySQL. Okay, so a string has a defined length of 255 characters in SQLize, and when you create a table with string, you will see when you go back to your MySQL workbench, you will see it creates a column with varchar 255. Okay, if you create a column with text, it creates with the data type string in MySQL. Okay, that's the difference between the two. So string is varchar 255. So you cannot input anything more than 255 characters in your title. That's basically what it means, or in the category. It's going to give you an error. Okay. This should complete the non-bonus part. We have defined our post model with these three columns. Now the bonus was, let's see, title should not take null, so that would be allow null. Okay, and remember there are two types of validation in SQLize: built-in and custom. Which one is this? Allow null false. Is it built-in or custom? Built-in, right? If it was custom, it has to go inside the object called validate, which is the next one. So they say the length should be between 1 and 160 characters, and that's the custom validation. So you have to create a validate object, and then within this object you will have length, which is going to be between 1 and 160. Okay, so if you need custom validation, they go under the validate object in your when you're creating your post model. The ones outside are built in, and SQLize recognizes them. Allow null is one of them. Okay, so allow null false means this column cannot be null, and the length would be between 1 and 160. Okay. Let's look at the body validation. Same thing, it says allow null false, so cannot be null, so built in, and then length should be at least 1 characters. It's going to be the same thing, same custom validation, but it has to be at least 1 character. It means that it is going to be 1. 1 is the shortest length, and the biggest length is unlimited. Whatever the length of this is defined by this. So you don't need to put an end value. This will say the character length should be at least 1 characters, 1 or more. Okay, we only have the beginning, starting starting length, which should be, it cannot be shorter than 1 character. Okay, and how long it can be anything, whatever the final length of this text data type allows, right? So you don't need the second number over here. This one is saying between 1 and the maximum 160. This one is saying minimum 1, maximum whatever the length is allowed in the text data type. Okay. The last one category was it should, so allow null is not required. There's no length. It just should have a default value. So the property is going to be default value, and it's set personal. Okay, and this should create my post model. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. All right, successful. Created a table and everything. Now, if you go back to your MySQL workbench, we should be able to see this table. So I'm going to open my SQL workbench, localhost. Let's go refresh, and there's my database, and it has one table, post. If you look at the table inspector, you will see these columns over here: body, category, and ID, title 255, 255. Text, which is open-ended. Okay, there's no limit to it, limited by memory. And then you have an ID, updated at, and created at. These are coming from SQLize, right? It is automatically creating these three columns. And my primary key is going to be ID, auto increment, and this is how it should be looking at. All right, any questions? Everybody able to create that table using SQLize? Any questions? Last step. Oh, the code is already there if you open up your server.js. I just ran the file. If you look at the bottom over here, so this should be initializing it. So the code for initialization is already, I just ran, I did a nodemon server.js and it started. So the only changes we are making is to Postjs. If this is good, if the syntax over here is good, it should be working. Are you getting any error? Huh? Yes, it's required, and I didn't do it. It should already be there in your either server.js. It should be DB, this thing. Yeah, it should be there already. Working? All right. What is it? Okay, what's the error? Go back to the scroll up and see what the error is. SQLize what? SQLize not defined? Did you do a npmi, install everything? You have a node modules folder in your unsolved. Okay. Um, okay. What file is it saying not defined? You know the file name. Models. So in your post, the casing matters. So do you have a lowercase SQLize and SQLize? So this SQLize is lowercase, and this is coming from over here. And all of this should be inside this function, the function body. Nothing should be outside the function. Okay. And you're returning over here. Anybody else having any issues? Still the same error? It says SQLize not defined.
I'm saying that there's like a syntax error or something.
Yeah, that I think it's probably like a parentheses or something missing. All right, anyone else? Does everybody has this completed? I'm gonna stop this. Oh, there's a new version of npm. Okay, so if you are done, let's go ahead and open up activity number 12, and we'll discuss activity number 12. So activity number 12 has the solution, the unsolved one has the solution for the previous activity, and now we are going to add on top of that. So if you look at your models folder in the unsolved, for the post, it should have almost the exact same thing. Oh, this is wrong. Title was between 1 and 160, right? Let's go ahead and correct this. Okay, so it should have models defined. I think the length is, there was a typo, so I just added 160. Otherwise, the solution from the previous one should already be there. Still not working, Ethan, Jeremy? Oh. All right, so in number 12, okay, so in number 12, what we are going to do, the same steps, make sure your config is updated. Okay, schema, you don't have to do this. It's the same database that already you created in the previous activity. Okay, just make sure your config is updated. It's missing the password. Okay, do a npmi install all the packages in activity number 12. And then in your routes folder under API routes, you have to create all these routes now. Okay, you have to create a get route. This is going to return a collection. So db.post find all for the first one. The second one is going to be by category. Okay, so you have to do the category one. You are going to get a category over here. Okay, and this is a column in your database. Okay, so you'll have to use the where condition. So you are you still have to use find all, but within the find all, you're going to use the where clause. Okay, because this is going to return more than one records, and that's what the comment says over here. Find all the posts. So it's going to return you multiple results. All right. The only thing is you are using the category in the where clause. This one is by ID, so you can use find one for this one, the third one. Okay, find one by ID. This is going to be a create function. This is going to be a delete. and this is going to be your update. Okay. Now remember, in the on Tuesday we did the update where the ID was being passed in. I would still prefer that, but don't worry about it because the UI is sending you everything in the body. So look at the body, pull the ID from it, okay, reg.body .id, and then complete your update request. Okay, if you look at the solution from the from Tuesday, not my solution, I posted both solutions. So the stocks solution, or the one that comes with it, it's solving this similarly. Okay, so go ahead and complete all of these routes using Sequelize. Right, very similar to the one we did on Tuesday. You can open up the Tuesday activity, and the only thing would be this route is going to be different. Okay, make sure you can write this route. Everything else is same as we did. Okay, but this one is not as difficult. You just are passing in a category in the find all method. Okay, and that should be all. All right, so let's go ahead and start on this. Let's make sure we are able to complete this because the next ones are going to be building on APIs using this table. Okay. And after this, your UI should be functional. So when you run this, make sure go to the browser, browse through this app, and you should be able to get all the posts, save post, delete, update post, and everything. All of these are working. Again, you don't have to worry about the UI. The UI is already here and it's already done. But make sure that you are able to process all these functions. Again, no change in the UI, just this file over here and your config. Just update the password.
Right, that's what I was thinking about.
What I can do is cut this out. Here's the quick fix. Right click on both of those.
I'm looking at the last one. So the curly brackets are optional. That's all they use in Office. Create. Yeah, post. Because I'll just go on.
Well, it already has this. So yeah, let's start this. So go
Well,
to
for the update, don't you need to know? You need to know what you're updating.
yeah, it should be. So let's see if that.
So then,
Did that work, Ethan? No? Still the same error?
no,
Which one? Okay, did we complete the first one? Should be straightforward. Um, should be db dot post dot find all method and dot then find all, then empty object. I need everything. This is going to give me back some data, and then rest.json data. Okay, if you go back to your browser, right now I don't have any post, but it should show you, oh, this is the default one, a couple of more categories, and well, I don't have any post right now, so it won't show me anything. Let's see if there's any error. Looks like there is an error. Cannot read find all property of undefined. Okay, it's going to be uppercase, that's why, and there it is. Okay, if you just remember that in your server.js you have this force true, so every time you stop and run the server, it's going to delete the whole table and then going to recreate that table. So I'm going to comment this out for now. Because my table creation is done, I don't want to recreate. I'm going to insert some data, it's going to delete all my data. So I'm going to remove it or comment out this thing. So I'm going to, and if you were able to complete the previous one and you have your table created, we are not going to make any schema changes for now for this part of the activity. So I'm going to comment this out because I'm going to complete my create, and then I'm going to insert some data. As soon as I make any changes, going to delete everything and then recreate my table. So for this activity, I'm going to comment this part out, force true, because my table is already created. I don't want to delete it. In the next activity, we are going to add one more table. So that's why we need it for this one. I'll just comment it out. Okay. Going back here, this should give you all the posts. Okay, let's move on to the next one, the category. Similar to find all, this time you'll have a where condition and you're going to write the where condition on the category. And your category is coming in your params, right? URL parameters. So you're going to pull this category out from the params. So basically, you can just copy paste this and add a where condition. So same thing, find all, then function. The only thing is you're going to have a where condition over here. So it's going to be where, and where is going to be an object. Okay, and then you are saying where category is equal to, this is the name of the column that is in your database. It's going to be rec dot params dot category. Okay, and this is this one over here, what you're passing in. Let's go back here. No errors, so this is good. I still don't have any data, so that's why it doesn't show me anything. Yeah, you should be getting this error. Any category that you select, since we don't have any post, so that's what it says. Let's go back here. No errors, so this should be your category. All right. Complete the next one. The ID one should be using find one, where ID is equal to similar thing rec.params.id, and this will complete the next one. So db dot post dot find one, okay, and dot then function. Then function is the same thing over here. So I'm just going to copy this over. Find one, and then this is going to be the condition. Condition is going to be similar, but this time instead of category, we are using ID, where ID is equal to rec dot params dot ID. Okay, and this ID is same as this one. So if you select a post with a specific ID, is going to return you that post. Looks like, and in your front end, there is code that brings up. Since we still don't have any posts, we're not able to run this one. So once you complete the create one, you should be able to create some, and then it should be able to show you some of the posts. For the post, if you want to see what data you're going to get back, the best way is to look at the UI and see what they're sending you back. Is it in complete object or individual portions? So if you look, let's look at the JavaScript. This is the get route. I'm looking for post. Looks like it's this one. No, this is still getting. Delete, create, maybe. Delete. Oh, let's look at this one. Oh, there it is. Okay. New post, and then submit post. So looks like I'm getting the whole object. Submit post is equal to new post, which is the whole object. Okay, so you're getting the complete object back, which is going to have your title, body, and category. So you can simply pass the whole object in your create function. So you can say db dot post dot create, and then dot then. Dot then is same as this one, so we can just copy this. Okay, and create takes in a object which is post, which is already coming to me in the body. So I just can say rec dot body. That should insert whatever my UI is sending. So let's go ahead and test this out. Let's say personal new post, first post. This is my first post. Okay, category personal, submit, and there it is. Okay, so this means if you see this page, this means we are able to insert, and you are able to see this post. All right, so your get routes are working. If you select by category, there's no post. Okay, product review, there's no post. Personal has one, so it should bring up one. Okay, so personal should bring up one, and all categories should bring this one. Okay, the next two would be edit and delete, and that would be your update and your delete routes. Any questions so far? Was everybody able to complete the first 3-4 routes until the insertion before we move on to delete and update? Okay, what's the issue here? Huh? Is it giving any error?
No,
You didn't. You didn't what? You gave up?
it,
Oh. Well, okay. So at what point did you give up? I mean, this activity already has the solution from the previous one. Okay. So which part are you lost? Were you what, did you do the previous one? The post one? Right. So that one is the one that creates the table in your database. Okay. This one is accessing the table that you created. Okay. So the previous one, what we did was we were creating a model in our SQLize. Okay. And this model corresponds to the table in your database. Okay. You understand MySQL, right? Well, table creation, columns, and everything. Okay. So so this model is going to create a table called posts in your MySQL database, and then it's going to have these 1, 2, and 3 columns. This is just a syntax. This is how you do it in SQL. That's the only thing. Otherwise, behind the scenes, it's going to create these 3 columns. It's going to have this is going to be the data type for each column, and these are just some validation points. Okay, and in your API routes, you are now basically filling in your APIs. So the first API is supposed to get everything that is in your database. It's going to run the query called select star from post, basically. Okay, instead of writing the query, we're calling the function. The second one is basically running a query saying select star from post where category is equal to whatever is being passed in. Okay. The third one is saying select star from post where id is equal to whatever the id is passed in. Okay, we are just not writing the queries, we are calling the functions that behind the scenes. If you look at your console over here, it's already giving the same queries that I'm talking about. Okay, the last one that we completed is the post one, which is the creation, and this is running what is the query? Insert into post values this thing where category title and is equal to this thing. That's what's going on. Yes.
so when people use MySQL out in the real world, do they usually use SQLize for that?
So depending on the programming language you're using, if it is Node.js, yes, I do Java, and I use they have their own built-in ORM, and that's what we use. Yes.
Okay.
That's what I was saying. Once I started using, huh?
But for the learn stack, this is SQLize is what I guess is
Yeah. Is SQLize or I mean or any other ORM. As I said, there's not only one ORM. Your question would be more: do they use ORM or not? I would say most of the time yes, but again it depends. Maybe the direction is no, we are going to write hard code the queries. If that's how the developer, whoever started it, that's what you will do. But a lot of time I've seen SQLize being used. The reason if it's not used is if it gets more complicated. Let's suppose you have like 50 tables or something. Then it's kind of difficult to manage and making sure how the connection it is. It's more easier to manage just writing simple queries. Not simple queries, the queries are going to be more complex and it's easier to just write those queries yourself versus actually using an ORM. That's the only point.
So in that case, when you have a bunch of tables,
Yeah.
other companies create their custom ORMs, or they just use
No, they just use queries. Yeah, they don't create custom. It will actually take a lot more time creating custom ORM, and it's an unnecessary requirement. So I have never seen anybody creating a custom ORM. Either they use it or they completely ditch it and use the inline SQL queries. Yeah, those are the two options. Yeah. No custom ORM. I haven't seen anybody creating custom ORM. Okay. So let's go ahead and complete the delete route. db.post is going to be .destroy and then pass in the ID. So it is actually literally this thing. Instead of find one, you change it to destroy. Okay, remember delete and get routes are very similar. So same thing, you have to pass an ID, return something instead of find one you are saying destroy. So now if I go back over here, if I delete this, delete it. Okay. Let's go ahead and create a new post. Personal. Okay, still working. The last one would be your update. Okay, so remember I said update is passing everything in the body, so it's going to be similar to your create route. So you can let's just write it out. That's might be easier. Okay, so it's going to be db.post and dot update and then the dot then function. Okay. Now, what are the two things that update requires? You need to pass in the data that you're trying to update, right? So that would be in the body. So request dot body, and then a condition that based on what you are trying to update, similar to your delete or get or find one. So you're going to say where ID is rec dot body dot ID. Why did I use rec.body.id and not rec.params.id? I'm not getting in from the URL. Excellent, right? You see the URL is empty. I'm not getting the ID from the URL. So where is my ID coming in? It's inside the body. And that's how the front end for this exercise is. I would prefer sending an ID over here. But that's how I didn't want to change the example. So that's why we'll go with what we have. Okay, so you have your data based on this. This should go ahead and update. So now if you run this, let's go ahead and edit, post, edited, is now edited. And then if you submit this, this is my new post. Okay, I think you can even change the category. Let's move it to product review, see if this works. So now if I go to my personal, no post. If I go to product review, the post has been updated to the new category. Okay, let's go back here. So this would be my update. All right, any questions? Any clarification that I can make before we proceed to the joins and associations? Yes.
Yeah, you said that you prefer to do that with the URL.
Uh-huh.
Why is that?
Because that's how the REST API standards are defined. If you look at the Microsoft one and the Google's one, your delete should have an ID in the URL, your update should have an ID, and in the body it should have the data that you're trying to update. So those are the REST standards. Update or put is kind of iffy. Some people say it should be in the body, some people say it should be in the ID, so it depends who you're following. But most of the standards kind of say that there should be an ID in the URL and the data should be in the body. That's why.
So an interviewer or something would not want to do it this way.
Yeah, do the ID one. Yeah. Yeah. That's tried and tested. I have done it and everybody is kind of expecting that. Yeah. Yes.
Is there a preference between, like on your update and your create, to pass the object from the front end and just reference rec.body, or to actually create the object on the back?
That is again preference. Usually you will see that the object is created on the front end because you already have access to everything and just pass it to your backend, unless it's a complicated object. So what Ethan is saying that if you see over here in your create request, I'm passing in this object, right? If you look at your front end, the object already has your title, category, and what's the third one? Body. So he's saying, do you do this or do you create an object dot title, and then you can say category rec dot body dot category, and then the last one was body. This is going to be confusing. It's body dot body. So either you can do this. So you see, still you're creating an object, but you're pulling each individual out from the request body. Okay. But the short form is you can just pass in because this red dot body actually contains the whole thing. So that's what I. So that's what I did. Okay. Right now we are getting it in the whole object, so that's why I didn't do it. But it depends how your front end is written. Okay. Any other? Yes. No, it's in the body. If you want to do it in the URL, you'll have to go and update your front end as well. If you look at the front end code in your JavaScript, they are sending it in your in the body. If you look at the update post, so you'll have to change this if you wanted to. So you'll have to say plus ID, whatever the post dot ID, and then something like this. So you'll have to change this over here. I'll just say this like this. So I didn't want to change anything in the front end. That's why I just went with what they have. Okay. Any other questions? All right. So let's take a break. We'll come back. We will look at joins again. This is a little bit more challenging. Please make sure you understand what has been done because we're going to build up on top of this. All right. We'll start at 15 minutes from 7:40, which would be 7:55. Start at 7:55.
It's all.
Yeah,
Try to do the game boy. See that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I did it wrong. So. Then I got a little lost. A hole and it yowls every time you turn the pencil. That's pretty funny. I did not know that. It was pretty surprising to me for the first time. Kind of, yeah.
So if you put it over here, the thing is your content the code is already there is quite good out there. So that's why I need it. So remove that. Okay. And then just put it over. No, you need to wear it, but it's not in the so that's not a problem. Okay. This oh yeah. Why are you using this? Yeah, right. That, okay, background. So it's not a right. Remember I was saying comment out the force two, so we'll keep it in the variables. So we go back to this variables. This force two. This every time your one kicks off, it's going to do this. So for now we are good since we already did it. Now that I look. Create a new force.
It's okay.
Missing. Right. Yeah, there is one more.
That's all it was.
That's all there is. Getting a sequelize is very easy. Make a type or something. You gotta go into oh. It was missing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it-
I just read an article online about it.
Yeah, because the plural site's that website that you.
Yeah, in the
Yeah, I'm saying.
So we were talking
Yep.
in the back of this, which is okay,
Like $30. But it gives you like
no, because that was conversion from one to
this gives you
yeah, and these one is the packaging. This is
I got one.
I think I'll start asking questions.
So you just got the legs that raise up. That's what I showed them because I did the same thing. I bought just their top from that kid, and then I bought some welded middle. I was thinking. It just clean simple.
A couple of years ago, I had one. It's gonna be like, and it's gonna go up and down. That's gonna be heavy. So I have different speakers now that I calculate across both of these. I totally changed my stuff too. I used to have a lot more
So in your stuff, so basically that's why.
so my speakers are like 25 pounds each. So I'm on there. Yeah. Plus some other stuff.
And this is for training, right? Taking your spec and
I'm gonna calculate it. It's have to be like 200 pounds. Sitting on it. So that's what about it. And then, of course, you're gonna like lean on that.
so that's what you are creating.
This test and it's for the rest of my life.
It's gonna be a good shooting one day.
No, I have not planned out. Except for the countertop. It's the countertop. Be long.
Yeah, you are comfortable about it.
Here we are reading about that's Jeff Bezos starting with freaking doors, 2x4s.
It's not sick. You gotta have to like, you gotta have like a template like drawn into it, so like greens with subscribe.
Or little inserts.
Yeah, so the tips, the tops will tip over, you know, like mess up, you know, water. That guy who just throws a bullet and just hits house right and spills. Actually, no, this is so now for North Carolina.
My young cousins, they had a family here at 21. Me and my cousin from about one went out with them. At like River's apartment in Fairfield. My cousin from California.
So
You know where the door
it was
is?
sitting on
On the things. And it's just everything.
It's basic. Years since
So mine was last year, 2 years ago.
on Saturday,
I think they should do
once we have.
For this particular center.
Um, when the trade was shared, you were how to do that.
Checkers is something I haven't played in 10 years.
And when I came down,
Yeah.
Kiwi was
Well,
the
the oldest one's 5.
it was like just sales.
And she could play checkers, but her whole idea of games is like brilliant.
But then I heard people
If I
say
can
that
her
they
checkers,
eventually
you don't have to play one time.
mark the board doesn't matter what.
Yeah, I mean,
They've got all the notes and stuff.
well, the math says that this is actually and nobody can mark it.
Right.
But nobody can.
You have to get to it. And that was the thing, that when I turned in Saturday, I made my race parking lot, I was just like, I'm just gonna park.
Yeah, I was thinking about starting my homework after class.
I always.
I mean, I got the folders set up. I put files inside the folders.
Access and the issue. Fingernails, I was like.
I get real crazy on my awesome shit or something.
Keeps the shadows. Do you guys see that oil painting? Do you ever see that? That's
All right. Any questions on the previous activity or any of the concepts, any of the sequelized functions or anything before we proceed? It's a. I'll try to make it as simple as possible. I mean, of course. So here's the thing. Whatever I'm going to say, example, everything is in the documentation, but I understand people have difficult time understanding what's going on over here. So basically, I'm just reading this and translating it into a different language and explaining it to you the same thing. Okay. All right. So. All right, let's concentrate for 1.5 hours more, and we'll get through this. And then we have like almost 3 weeks, so it's not a break. It's a break for me. You guys are working on projects.
He loves saying that.
Yeah.
It's his favorite line.
Yeah, I need a break. I'm going to take one of those Saturdays off again, I think. Yeah. All right, so we have looked at SQLize with one table, right? Of course, we looked at MySQL with 2 tables or more. And then what we did was, wait, what happened to my associate? Oh, there it is. I couldn't see it. I'm like, what happened? Yeah, there's a glare over there. Okay. So when we talked about MySQL, we looked at joins. Okay. The first thing is the terminology. The joins in SQLize are called associations. Okay, it's the same thing when you talk about MySQL and you talk about joins. So associations is a SQLized term, and which translates to joins in MySQL. Okay, simple. When you look at the queries, remember when you do a console log or when you run your SQLize, it console logs the query. So when you're doing associations, you will see joins and everything. Okay, so SQLize calls them associations. All right. Now, first thing is there are 2 terms that I'll be using: source and target. Okay. So I'll be talking about source and target. Okay. So what is the difference between source and target? We are looking at queries that involve 2 tables. Okay, the table that I write on my left is going to be considered source. Okay, if there's a table over here, so let's see. Let's suppose I have a table called player. Okay, any table that I write on the left is source table, and the table that I write on my right side is going to be a target table. So in this case, I have two tables, player and team. I wrote player on the right side, so I'm saying the player table is the source table and my team table is the target table. Okay, those are the two things. Again, these are not stuff that I have made it up. It's in the documentation, and SQLize calls them source and target tables. And you will see why the syntax is kind of similar. Remember, in the joins, you have a table on the left. It's kind of the query is something. If you were joining these two tables, you would say select star from player, and then this would be an inner join. Okay, and then you would have the table, the second table T, right? You still need two tables. So this is the left, this is on the right side. SQLize translates them and calls them source and target tables. Okay? Everybody clear so far? Okay? All right. So now the question is, if I have two tables, how do I create a relationship between those two tables? Goose. All right. The question is, I have these two tables. How do I ensure that there's a relationship between these two tables? We use what?
Make an association.
Yeah, but how do you do it in MySQL? Like, how do you create that relationship, that association in MySQL? Not SQLize, nothing of that sort. I have two tables, and in your MySQL, how do you make sure that the two tables are related to each other? How do you ensure that? What do you use?
You join.
Joins, yeah, but you need to have some setup. How do you join two tables? Based on what are you joining those two tables?
The ID or the primary.
ID. Okay? So remember the foreign key concept, right? If you want to create an association between two tables, they should be sharing an ID. Okay? These two tables are going to relate to each other if there's an ID of one table in the another. So for example, if team table has an ID, okay, a primary key has an ID, okay, right now there's no relationship between them, right? Why? Because they are independent of each other. Player table has no association, or let's say no relationship with the team table. Team table has no relationship with the player table. And why? Here the IDs. So for example, associating my player table with a team. Okay, and how do I associate them? I am associating by sharing the ID. The ID that exists in my team table, I'm passing it in my player table as well. Okay, this is how you create relationship between tables. And the table that is borrowing an ID from a different table, this ID is called foreign key. Okay, why is it called foreign key? Because this is a primary key in a different table, in a foreign table. Okay, this is the ID, this is the primary key that is outside, that some other table has this key as a primary key, right? But I'm borrowing it over here. So in this table, the same key is referred to as foreign key. It cannot be called a primary key because my player table has its own primary key, which is player ID, right? Team ID, there's another ID. And what is it called? It's called a foreign key. And why? Because the team ID exists somewhere else in a different table. Okay? So, how do we create a relationship between two tables? You need to have a foreign key relationship. Okay? Your tables should be sharing an ID, a foreign key. And that's how you create a relationship between two tables. Okay? Otherwise, there is no way to create a join unless there's an ID. I mean, how would you create a join if the player doesn't know what team table is, or there's no ID, there's no sharing of an ID. Okay, so how do you create a relationship between tables? You use foreign keys. What are foreign keys? Those are primary keys of a different table. Okay, any questions on this? Yes. Most of the time it has to be, it is an ID. And why? Because ID is the only one that guarantees that it's going to be unique. So you want to create a relationship based on something that is unique. The most unique thing in any table is an ID. There might be a few more things, but The only guaranteed thing that is going to be unique is going to be a primary key. There's no other column that's going to be there. So that's why you will see the relationships are based on IDs.
So it's usually a primary key, the foreign key is usually a primary key in one of the tables.
Yes,
and then-
exactly. That's the definition of a foreign key.
Okay.
Yes. Okay?
So if you were to put, I mean, the way you have it set up right there, you can't put multiple players on the team, right? Because each player would have to have their own ID, and they can't share the same ID with the team, right?
Repeat your question, the first part.
So each player has their own individual ID, right?
Okay, you guys are hearing this? The question, Kelly is saying every player has their own individual ID, which is good, yes.
Each team has their own individual ID.
Each team has their own ID, yes.
And so if you have one player and you're matching their IDs up, you can only have one player per team.
No. Why
Or
not?
you're setting,
No, now look at it. I have player one, and let's create this one first. So I have a team table, and my team IDs are 1. Let's pick a different number: 10, 20, 30. Unique. So how many teams are there? Three teams.
Yeah.
Now my player, I have, let's suppose, 5 players. My player 1 belongs to team number 10. Good. My player 2 belongs to team number 10. Is that not possible? Why not?
okay, I thought you meant you were taking the primary key, so like each matching 1 with 1, 2 with 2, stuff like that. I thought that's
Oh, no. Foreign key is a key. This ID should exist on this table. That's all.
Okay.
And the uniqueness of this table is defined by this. So there is never going to be 1, 10. This is not possible. Why? Because this ID cannot be repeated because you already have this.
So, okay, that makes sense.
Yes, Raymond?
So is the source usually a part of the larger whole, or is that just kind of an accident at the same time?
No, it's not an accident. It's just a term. If I did team, if I changed this, if I said team and player, so just a terminology change. Now my source table is team and my target table is player. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just a terminology that SQLite uses, and we will see why it uses because the syntax is coming up. So, but basically the only thing to right now is if I'm talking about a source table, this means the table that is on my left side, and if I'm talking about target table, that's the table that is on the right side of a statement. We'll see what that statement is, but that's all it means. Okay, you can put source as this one. You can switch it out. It doesn't matter. Okay, at this point, it doesn't matter. So I'll say this is clear. Okay. All right. Any questions before we proceed? Okay. Everybody understand the foreign key? Why do we need this? If you want to create association or relationship between two tables, you need a foreign key relationship. There are other factors, other things, but for our course, for our projects, this is the basic one, and it will apply, and it's going to work in every scenario. Okay. All right. So let's look at what are those relationships now. Okay. So let's suppose my player table has player ID. Okay. Let's say first name and last name. These are player information. My team table has team ID. Let's say team name. Let's just take a basic example. Okay. Now, if I want to create a relationship between those two tables, I need a foreign key. Okay. Now, which table is going to have which foreign key? I've kind of already solved it before, but let's get back to it. Okay. So, which table is going to have which ID? If I want to create a relationship. Okay. Now, here's the scenario. The scenario is a player can only belong to one team. Okay. a player cannot belong to two teams. Is that clear? So if I have a player, um, um, he or she can be only part of a single team. Okay? We'll look at a scenario where a player, because in real life it's possible. If you're looking at soccer, they have clubs and country. So a same player can belong to more than one team. So for now, I'm restricting it. I'm saying a player can only belong to a single team. Okay? And a team is going to have many players. All right? Do you guys see it? A player can belong to a single team, but a team can have many players. Okay? Now, how do I associate these two tables? Which ID goes where? I'm going to use a foreign key. Okay? Now, does my team table get a player ID or does my player table gets a team ID? Okay? So why doesn't my team table get a player ID and why can't I create this relationship? Because that's what? Because that's a problem? Oh, that's okay. Other than source and target, why cannot I have a player ID over there? Right. What is it? Right, because it's going to put the player in multiple teams. Okay, it's hard to. How do you? I said team can have many players. All right. So how does my data set look like? I'm going to have team number 10 with player number 1. Okay, and then team number 10 with player number 2, team number 10 with player number 3. Is that possible? On my teams table. Is that possible? Can I insert the data set in my teams table? Adriel, you are saying yes.
Yeah, because it's the team, and say it owns those players, so it's
Right, but this is my team ID.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is my player ID. Okay, on this one. Can I insert this here? How is it? How you think it's not going to give you an error? What is the primary key over here for the teams table? The primary key for the teams table? What is it? Which column is the primary key? Team ID. Does team ID has to be unique?
Yeah.
And is it unique in that data set, the team ID? Right, so I won't be able to insert that data. It's not possible because I cannot repeat this in this data set. Right? When you try to insert, it's going to give you an error. Why? It's going to give you an error saying uniqueness error or something. And the reason is the primary key has to be unique. You cannot have the same key repeated. So it has to be 20, it has to be 30, but then you can only have one player. So that's the reason you cannot have player ID in this table. The solution is your player has an association with your team. Okay? So every player is going to have their own ID and then the ID of the team that they belong to. Okay? Everybody clear on that? So every player is going to have an ID, which is going to be unique, the primary key, and then they're going to have an ID of the team that they belong to. See how I kind of factored into the first concept? All right. So the first relationship is called belongs to. This is literally the keyword that SQLize uses. Okay. What does belongs to relationship means? It says that when you create a belongs to relation, use the belongs to association in SQLize. It takes the key from your target and adds it as a foreign key to your source table. Okay, so if you're talking about creating association in SQLize, you would have to write the code as in saying player dot belongs to dot key. Syntax is a little bit different, but don't worry about the syntax right now. But this is how eventually it's going to be. It's not the exact syntax. I think it needs an object, but it relays the concept. Okay, so belongs to on your left side is the source table. On your right side is your target table. Okay, so if I write this statement saying player belongs to team, what does it translates to in Sequelize? What is it going to do? It's going to go to the teams table, the target table. It's going to take that ID and then put it in the source table as a foreign key. Okay. When you run your model, when you run your Sequelize, eventually you will go to MySQL Workbench. You will see that automatically it will take the ID from this table and then put it over here in this table. Okay. Now again, what's going to happen? You are going to create two tables. You're going to create two models in Sequelize. You're going to create a player model and you're going to create a team model with this exact definition. All right, you're going to have an ID on your player. You're going to have two more attributes, two more columns, first name, last name, and in your team, you're going to have this. Okay, this is how the tables will be created. But when you get to the next line, when you write this code, when you say player belongs to a team, it's going to take the ID from your target table and put it in your source table as a foreign key. This is how your table is going to look like eventually. Okay. Now the first one, this one we are covering belongs to. This is called one-to-one association, one-on-one association, or one-to-one association. Okay. What this means is that you are creating relationship, you are creating an association between two tables just by using one foreign key. Okay, so any one-on-one associations or such as belongs to, it means that you can create a relationship between two tables by using just one foreign key. Okay, so those are called one-to-one associations. Let's go back and make sure. Okay, this is what it says. Okay, when you create when you're using a single foreign key to connect two tables, okay, those are called one-to-one association, and belongs to, the first one that we are looking, is one-to-one association. Okay, because we are able to connect these two tables using just one foreign key, which is team. Okay. All right. Any questions before I move on to has one? Does everybody understand the concept for belongs to? And if you have two tables, how would you recognize how to use belongs to? Now your tables will look at all of these examples. Right now it fits the first criteria, so you're going to use belongs to. Okay. You might run into some other tables that do not fit the belongs to criteria, but they will fit one of these. So we will take a look at the other three. Okay. For now, does everybody understand belongs to? Source, target, when I say players or the table on the left side belongs to this one, it's going to take the key from the target table and put it in your source table. Clear? Any questions? Okay. No questions? Sure. All right. So if no questions, let's look at the second one. The second one is has one. Okay. Now I'm going to say the definition of has one. Has one is a one-to-one association relationship. Okay, one-to-one relationship. Okay, just like belongs to, has one is also one-on-one association. Okay, the difference between has one and belongs to is has one puts the foreign key on the target table. Okay, does that? Okay, so has one is also one-to-one association, but the difference is has one puts the foreign key on the target table. What does belongs to do? Belongs to puts the foreign key on the source table. Has one puts the foreign key on the target table. Is that clear? Okay, so if has one puts the has one is one-on-one association, so I should be able to use has one over here as well, because I just need one foreign key, right? Has one applies over here as well, and then has one is saying that instead of the putting the foreign key on the source table, has one puts the key on the target table. So how does my top part, how does my code change over here? Is this correct if I say player dot has one team? It's not correct. And the reason is it's going to go ahead and it's going to take the ID from the player table and put it on the team table. Okay, so that's not the correct association. If you are using has one for this, it has to be team dot has one player. Okay. Now, what does has one does? It's going to take an ID from the source table and then put it on the target table, and this will create the same thing, and this is going to work. Okay. Now, but the question is then what's the difference? Why would I use has one and why would I use belongs to? If you look at the first one, does it make sense? Player belongs to a team. I can see that association. The second one is syntax wise, when you're creating a table, that's correct. But when you're reading it, it doesn't really make sense. It says team has one player. But I know the team is not going to have one player. It's going to have more than one player. So it's confusing. The what it is actually saying is that team is going to have like one individual player, like a unique player. Every team is going to have a single unique player. That's what it is trying to say, but when you read it, it's confusing and you're like, well, I'm not sure what it means. Okay, so in this case, you are still going to use the first one. Okay, but we need to understand from the code wise, the second one, the way it is right now, is also correct. And the reason is, has one puts the foreign key on your target table. Okay, now in this case, would you use has one? You will not, right? Because it doesn't really make sense. But let's suppose I have another table, and my table is called coach. I have a coach table which has coach ID and just say coach name. Okay. Now, if I want to create an association between coach and team, what is it going to be? Which association would you? What about look at the has one? How would you write a relationship between coach and the team? Forget about the player now. Coach and the team using has one. What's going to be the relationship? Okay. Team has one coach. Okay. Now, from the code perspective, what's going to happen? What foreign key goes where? Has one. Has one takes from the target and puts it on the source.
Oh.
So the what is it, bro? Oh no, has one. We're using the has one. So what does has one do? Has one looks at the target, takes the key from the target and puts it on the source. Is that what you said? What?
Yeah, because I said one and she said the opposite. Because I said
Stop
team
looking at
is
where
good.
he says source and target.
Okay. So with this, it's going to take the coach ID and put it in the team. Let's come over here and put the coach ID over here. Is this correct? Right? The relationship is correct. That your coach table should not have a team ID. Your team ID has to have the coach ID. The same reason for why your team does not have the player ID. Okay, this means relationship is one on one, right? Every team is going to have a single coach, and so that's why you don't have to repeat anything. You will have a team ID 10, then you will have a team name, and then you will have a coach ID, which will tell you what the name of the coach is, and this would relationship would be correct. Okay, so in this case, has one makes more sense because you're saying, oh, team has one coach, which is correct. Every team is going to have a single coach. So you're saying, but you could flip it around and use belongs to also, that coach belongs to a team. Okay, which is in this case, it's still fine. You just need, it's more like a flexibility if to make you more understand. That's why you have these two different relationships, but they're just opposite. Okay, and opposite so that you can write the same association, which makes proper English or which makes more sense. Okay, so in this case, team has one coach would be more appropriate. That's why you would use has one. In the first case, player belongs to the team. You would have that. Okay, but the difference is belongs to uh, puts takes the target uh, ID from the target. Okay, and then puts it on the source table. So it's going to take it from the team and put it on the players table. Your has one does the opposite thing. Okay, it takes it from the source and then puts it on the. Did I say that opposite? No, I'm right. So your has one takes it from the target and puts it on your source table. Okay, left and right. That's the only difference. So belongs to your team ID is going over here, and then this is going let's look at the definition one more time. Okay, so the foreign key in belongs to exists on the source model. Okay, and has one, the foreign key exists on the target model. Remember that. Okay, so belongs to, the key would be on the source, and your has one, the key is on the target. That's the only difference between those two. Okay, any questions? Yes.
So both tables need to have like an matching ID already in them?
No, no, that's what I was saying. You will create your
Okay.
yeah, when you will create your table as standalone individual tables, okay? And then when you create that association in your code, when you say this, when you write this code, Sequelize is going to automatically go ahead and put this ID accordingly. You don't have to manually put that ID. You just have to create the tables or your model standalone. For example, if I say you have to create your model for player, you're going to say player ID. Actually, this is auto-generated, so you don't have to say that. You'll create first name, last name, and then this ID gets added by Sequelize. Okay, then you will create your team one. Okay, in this case, you will just put team name. This is auto-generated. Okay, all good. And then when you come to this part, when you write this code, SQLite is going to go ahead, find the right keys, put it over here where it goes based on that. So you don't have to manually create those foreign keys. SQLite will do that for you. Okay. The only thing you need to remember is how do we which is the correct one. If you have the correct association, SQLite will take the rest from there. You just need to use the correct association. All right. Any questions before we move on to has many? Yes.
How is it, when you do the association, how, I get that the code will bring the foreign key over, but then how would it know which player belongs to which team?
Which player belongs to which team? So you're going to have a team ID over here, right? So this will tell you which player belongs to which team. So you have a player called with an ID of 1, okay? And then you have their first name, last name, and then a team ID that they belong to. Let's suppose him. Then you have another row, player with an ID 2, first name, last name, and then they're going to have a team ID. They could be part of the same team. Okay, player 3 belongs to a different team. So this would be, that's how you will know which player belongs to which team. So if I say find all the players that belong to team number 20, whatever the name is, it's going to bring me just one player. If I say tell me which player belongs to team number 10, it's going to bring me these two players. That's how um, that's how the association is created. Remember the joins? You would make a join on these two tables saying inner join player and team, where team ID in this table is equal to the team ID in this table. And get me all the columns. It's going to give you team name, player name, first name, last name, IDs, and everything. Does that make sense? A little bit?
Yeah, I guess I'm just confused. Like, if the team ID never existed in player, like, how would it know that player one is on team 10?
Yeah, so the team ID has to exist on your player table. It has to be over here. That's why, just like the primary keys, the foreign keys cannot be null. Okay, you can put a restriction saying my foreign key cannot be null. So this means it has to be there. Even if the restriction is not there, if you don't have, if you put this as null, then what does this mean? This means your player number 3 doesn't belong to any team. Maybe he's a free agent or she's a free agent. So it doesn't belong to any team. That's possible. So yeah, you won't be able to find. You can write a query saying, hey, give me all the players where team ID is null. So you're trying to find out players that don't belong to a team. Maybe they're free agents. So you can run that query and this will give you that. Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. So we looked at one-to-one association. One-to-one association means that using just one foreign key, we are able to complete our model. Okay. Now, what does has many mean? If you look at the team and player, okay. When I talk about player and team, we were using a player belongs to a team. Okay. So a single player, one player can only belong to one team, right? One on one. Okay. So you have a player table and then you have a team table. And when you talk about player table and the team table, the relationship is one-to-one, meaning from the player side, a player can only belong to a single team. Okay? Now, if you flip it around, what about team to player? What does the relationship between, if you look at from the team perspective? Okay? So if we switch this around and then say team and player, now we're looking at the relationship from the team perspective. What does it say? A team can have many players. Is that true? Right? So that is called a one-to-many relationship. Okay? So one-to-many means that your team can have many players, but your player can only belong to the single team. Okay? So usually you will see some sign like this, like a triangle, which says your team can have many players, but your or let's do a star. Star usually have many players, so that's called a one-to-many relationship. Okay, and to write that relationship out, the code that you're going to use is has many. Okay, so if you wanted to write a relationship between team and player, you're going to say a team has many team has many players. Okay. Now, based on that, where do you think the foreign key is going to be? Which foreign key, considering our source and target table, which key goes where? What is it? It's the same relationship such as belongs to. I'm just changing the words, but the relationship, the foreign key still has to be the same. There's no other way it's going to work. So where does the foreign key goes where? Player goes to team. So what does this mean? Target is going to the source. Same as your has one relationship. So the ID from your target table goes into your source table. Okay, if you're using a has many relationship, remember the foreign key, the key from your uh, target table goes into your source table. Am I saying that opposite? Huh? Yes, yes. It is kind of similar to has one relationship. Oh, sorry, the belongs to one. Okay, so these are why is it different? The reason is when you're writing your code, you have to create the association between the two tables. You have to create between two models. You have to create a relationship in your player model, and then you have to create a relationship in your team model. So when you're creating a relationship in your player model, you're going to say player belongs to team. Okay, when you go to your teams table, you cannot say belongs to, right? What do you have to say? You have to say team has many players. So this is how you would create relationship between the two tables. Okay, between the two models. So when you're writing the code, you need to have an association on all your models. So your player model will have belongs to, but your team model has to has many, because in this way it's going to put the correct foreign key in the right place. Okay, again you have two models. You're going to, when you're writing your code in Sequelize, you're going to have two models, right? You're going to have a player model, and then you're going to have a team model. When you are defining association, when you create your player model, you're going to have first name, last name, something else. And then when you create your team model in Sequelize, you're going to have team name, team colors, or something. Okay, now when you create the association within the same file, you will say a player belongs to team. Okay, because you're trying to create the relationship. And then in your teams model, in the same file, you're going to say team has many players, because these two are going to put the right keys in the right place. Okay, eventually my players table has to have the team ID, this one. They has to go together. In this case, yes. Okay, usually that's the case. Yes, when you're doing a one-to-one or one-to-many relationship, they kind of go together. Any questions? What is it? Yes, that's no, it's not left and right join, it's actually inner join. I think you're trying to say table on the left and table on the right. They are inner join, they are not left and right join. And why do I say they are inner join? Because they are going to return exactly the rows that match in both tables. So it's not a left and right join, it's actually inner join. Okay, but we won't go over there. We don't have to worry about that. And the reason is Sequelize is handling it. But if you look at the code, it has to be an inner join, because you are trying to find um, every player that is belongs to some team. The results are going to be what? Same as in what? In which two cases?
Around the source of the target.
Oh, in this case? Yeah, but you need to have that association when you are defining in your models folder. Okay, so your both your model have to have some relationship. So this model, you are saying this belongs to this. This is done. When you come to this model, when you're creating this JavaScript file, you will say this thing. So you are kind of solidifying the relationship between two tables. Okay, and what the main reason is, if you have an API that returns player information, okay, it's going to give you the player information and also the team information. Why? Because you have this association. Okay, if you don't have this association over here, when you have a teams API, it will not return you the player information. And the reason is it doesn't know what the relationship is. So you need to put this relationship to tell, oh, when you get this team information, send me all the players as well. Right, that's one is one-sided, exactly. That's why you need, it's good practice. Make sure you put relationship in both the models so that you can get information from both the APIs. You might have an API that returns only player information. You might have an API that only returns team information. But you need data for both of those. Okay? All right, any questions before we move on to the last one? Yes. More of what? You have to do what? What does that mean? What do you mean by reciprocal? Right, that's what I was just explaining. Yes, you don't have to have it, but what's going to happen? You can have that. This is the relationship that's going both ways. This relationship says it goes this way, player to team, and this one is saying it goes team to players. And the reason it is required is that if you have an API that returns the player information, since you have this association, it's going to give you the team information as well, right? It's going to look up the player information. It's going to find the team IDs. It's going to bring the team that the player belongs to. Okay. But if I don't have this association, it's going to give me information about the team, but not necessarily about the players because I haven't created that relationship. That's the reason that you have it. Okay? All right, last one. Belongs to many. So belongs to many is less used, and most probably you might in your projects you might not run into this relationship. This is a little bit more complicated. What this relationship is, let's suppose we change our scenario now. Okay, same tables. I'm going to remove the IDs. Okay. Same tables, but now remember the restriction that a player can belong to only one team. Let's go ahead and remove that restriction. Okay, let's suppose this is soccer. So a player in soccer can play for a club, for a private club, and then they can also play for their country. Same player. Okay, so a same player can belong to more than one teams. They can belong to a team that they play for during the year. They belong to a club, but they also belong to the team of their country. Okay, so in this case, a player can belong to more than one teams. Okay, and the teams can have more than one players. Okay, again the restriction is removed. A player can belong to more than one teams. Now how does the relationship change? Where does what foreign key goes? First, is it one on one anymore? It's not. Why? Because many players can belong to many. Is what relationship it has become? It has become many to many. Okay, instead of one to many or one to one, this relationship has changed. It has become many to many. And many to many, why? Because the same player can now belong to more than one team. Okay? So, what happens in this case? Where does what foreign key goes? Now, well, is this going to work if I put the team ID over here? Will this still apply? Will this still work? Array? How would you? So this is SQL. I'm trying to insert a row in my database. Would this work? So if I have a player 1, which belongs to team number 10, okay? And then I have the same player that belongs to team number 20. Is this possible? It's the same issue, right? So this is not going to work. So in this case, what SQLize does, and again, this is a database concept. It's nothing that SQLize any of these things is that SQLize is doing on its own. These are the conditions that have been defined by all your relational database servers. What I mean by that is MySQL, SQL Server, anything that uses SQL, these conditions have been defined by them. SQLize is just following those rules as creating the code for you. Okay, so whatever I have explained, these are not SQLize concept. These are concept for any SQL database. I'm not talking about NoSQL databases. Okay, I'm not talking about Firebase. I'm not talking about MongoDB. Those are NoSQL databases. Okay, any table that uses SQL, all of these properties are true for them. These are the concepts that are applicable through every single SQL databases. All of them implement the same conditions, the same rules. Okay, foreign key rules, primary key rules, relationship, one to many, one to one. These are the concept, these are the terminology that comes from the SQL world. It has nothing to do with SQLize on its own. The reason we are seeing it over here is because we are using SQLize. That's the only reason. But if you are not even using SQLize, the same concept apply to your regular tables. Okay, just make sure you understand that it has nothing to do with SQLize. These concepts are true for every single SQL database. SQL Server, MySQL, MariaDB, any SQL database you use, they have same concepts. Okay, the queries are same. All right, so the rules over here, these things, these are true for any SQL database as well. Okay, if this is a condition, what happens? What SQLize is going to do? It's going to create a new table for you, a third table automatically. All right, you don't have to do it. SQLize is going to create a new table, and then it's going to put team ID and player ID, and then it's going to have its own ID as well. Now, in this case, will this work? So I have a player 1, but now I have a different ID, right? The first one, this is the table ID, this is always going to be unique. So this is going to be 1, this is going to be 2, okay? And the third one is going to be my player 2 belongs to team number 10. Will I be able to insert this data in this new table? Right? So anytime you have a many-to-many relationship, okay, what you have to do is you have to break it down and you have to create a new table which borrows foreign keys from both the tables. So this key is coming from this table, this foreign key is coming from this table, and the table has its own unique key. This is the solution if you have many-to-many relationships. Okay, now let me reiterate. SQLize is doing this automatically, but behind the scenes, if you were not using SQLize and you were just using SQL and you had the same tables, you will have to manually create a new table which is going to have foreign keys from this table and this table, the tables that are involved in many-to-many relationships. Okay, if you have to create a relationship between tables which are many to many, you have to create a third table that is going to host foreign keys from one table and the foreign key from the other table, just like this. Now in SQLize case, SQLize does it automatically. How does it do it? Just have to say players belong to many teams, or you can even say teams belong to many players. It doesn't matter. Does it matter where you put which name? It doesn't matter. And the reason is it is going to break it down and then create a third table with keys from both source and target. So it doesn't matter which is the source, which is the target when you're using belongs to many. More appropriate would be what makes more grammatical, more English sense. You would say player belongs to many teams. That makes more sense to me. So I would create a relationship saying player belongs to many teams, and then SQLize is going to go ahead, create a third table, get an ID, 2 foreign keys, make an ID, and then put the data over there. Any questions? This is probably the least used relationship and also a little bit more challenging to understand. Okay. The reason is because of this. You see, the we started with a scenario where a player belongs to only one team. It's kind of more easier scenario, so a lot of people kind of use those relationships. But when you have more than one tables that have many to many, for example, we lift the restriction saying the players can belong to more than one teams. You end up with this relationship. It's not uncommon when we are creating our databases, when we are working on a project, and we have to create our database tables. We run into this issue. The solution is you create a third table and put those two IDs over here. Okay. So even if you are using SQLize, if you're not using SQLize, when you're working and you run into an issue where your table, the relationship between two tables is many to many, the solution is you will have to create a third table that is going to host keys from both the tables. Yes.
So, if you already had MySQL database with some mediator tables, would it affect SQLize, or would SQLize go, oh, I did it?
So you will not create a table if you're using SQLize, right? I mean, the point of using SQLize is you just create the database and then you create tables using SQLize. So you will not have a table manually created, and that is going to confuse SQLize, of course. Then you cannot have these relationships, right? If you're using these, you are telling SQLize to go and handle for me. Okay. Um, if you do it manually, then you will have to skip these relationships and you'll have to do it on your own. But my suggestion would be you pick one side and do it. If you're using SQLize, let SQLize do its job. If you're not using SQLize, don't use it at all. Do it everything on your own. Again, the same rules apply. The belongs to, you'll have to do it manually. You'll have to take the key from your team, put it in your players table. You have to manually do. And we have done it. Remember when we studied MySQL, we had the joins. You cannot have a join unless you have a foreign key. So we did put manually over there. So you'll have to do it manually. Same rules. The only difference is SQLize is going to handle. You are telling SQLize to do it. That's all. Okay. Any questions? No questions. Now, if it is SQLize or not SQLize, these are the concepts which are really important when it comes to database. And every engineer at least has to know these concepts. Okay, I'm not a DBA. DBA means database administrator. I don't write complex queries, but I'm expected that I understand each one of them. Okay, these are, trust me, the tables that we are creating, these are relatively easier tables. Okay, as a full stack developer, the expectation is I can create these easy tables. I'm not talking about complex ones or where I need like multiple inner joins and four tables and everything. These simpler ones, the expectation is I should be able to quickly create tables in my job and at least understand these relationships and break it down if I'm running into many to many relationships. Okay, again, these are concepts from any SQL database, not unique to SQLize. SQLize is what SQLize does is it creates the query behind the scenes. It creates those temporary tables. It names those tables. If you look at the documentation, I think it takes the name from first table and second and then concatenates them and creates a table called player underscore team or something. They have the whole theory at the over here. What they're going to do, if you're interested in actually finding out exactly what table name they create, um, oh, they will just concatenate. So they will say team player or player team. That's the table name that they will create, and then they will take IDs from each one and camel case it. So it's going to be player ID camel case and then team ID camel case. That's what they're doing. Okay. Any questions around the concept before we move on to the syntax part? Okay. No questions? It has. I will be honest. It has never happened that anybody has understood the first time I have gone through it. So there might be some confusion. It's, maybe people are just shy to ask questions.
So you're saying that that table that it creates is a temporary table?
Oh no, 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 I take it back. A temporary table. No, it is going to create it in your MySQL. Yes, it's not a temporary table. What I meant was that there are two different tables, and you are not creating like a models folder, and you're not putting a table. That's what I meant. It's not going to be a temporary table. It's going to be a physical table. If you go to MySQL, you will actually see a table called team player, depending on which one are you using, and then it's going to have two columns called uh, team ID and player ID.
So when we're pulling the information out, if we want all of the information, we pull from that instead of player or.
Yes, yes. If you create this relationship and then you run your query saying db dot, in our case is going to be team or something, we'll look at the syntax. It's going to pull information from that. Yes, SQLize. If you're using just SQLize, it keeps track of what's going on. Yeah, it will know. So that's why I'm saying it is important that you create the right relationships so that you can get the right data back. All right, any other questions? Okay, now of all these three, the first three are more, these two are most common, so make sure you understand the first two. The third is next common. The fourth is a little bit rare, and in your projects, I highly doubt anybody is going to run into this issue. But if you do, it's not an issue, but into this condition, if you do, let me know and we can talk it out. We can see if we can break it down and we can create another table that can use one of these three. Okay? But if you run into this issue, this means you are kind of expanding your horizon. For example, the player and the team example, right? I took the condition out. I'm saying a player can belong to more than one teams. For my MVP, I might not be able to handle it, or it might not be required. Eventually, yes, but for now, I could maybe skip it. So that's what I'm saying. But make sure that you understand the first two clearly. What is the difference? And then the third one as well. These three are important. You might run into this one, but it is important that you understand all four. What is the difference? Again, it's not just SQLize. The same conditions, the same concept apply to any SQL database. All of them have the same conditions. One to one to many to many. The same terminology is used across all the SQL databases. Okay.
Belongs to is used, or just like the one-to-one?
No, it's called one to many, and many to many. Those are common. These are more SQLized terms. Belongs to, has one, has many, belongs to many. These are SQL terms. So behind what they have mentioned in the documentation, one to many, those are common. Yes, those are the terminologies across all the SQL databases. Okay, so one to one is going to be the first two, one to many, third one, many to many, the last one. All right, any questions before we move on to the coding part? Coding part is, again, it's not as difficult. The only thing what confuses is you need to understand exactly which one to use. Coding is pretty simple. It's literally putting the table name dot belongs to or something. We can look at the syntax, but what we need to understand is we use the correct associations. Okay? No questions? Everybody good? Okay. So I want you guys to now think about the project that we are currently working on, the post one. Okay. You saw this UI. It has posts. Okay, and you're writing some post. Okay. The next activity adds a second table, and it's called author. Okay. So this changes. Now you have author and post. Author and post. Okay, so look at the activity number 13. Your author model is already created for you. Okay, you don't have to worry about the creating author model or post model. The thing you need to worry about is the association. First, you can discuss as a team in your table. Make sure to understand what are the relationship or what is the association you're going to use between these two tables. Okay. Now the confusion is which is the source, which is the target. Pick one and go with it. Okay. If you want your post to be your source, then go with it. If you want your author to be your source, then go with it. But only pick one and then create all the associations using that condition. Okay. For example, if you're using belongs to, remember which is the source, which is the target, where does the key goes. Okay. So before you start coding or anything, make sure you understand what is the relationship between author and post. Okay. The use case would be same as player and teams. All right. An author can have many posts, but but a post can only have one author, just like our first condition as our team and player. Okay, we are not going with the understanding that a post can have multiple authors. We are going to say a post can be written by only one author, but an author can have many posts. Okay, so based on that, take a look at activity number 13. Make sure you're able to run it. Look at the models folder. Okay, if you look at the README, they have a link over there which takes you to the syntax. How do you write this syntax? So see if you can figure that out. This one over here. Let's go ahead and open this one. Is it this one? Let's see. Okay, they're using a different example, but the um, syntax is going to be similar. Okay, they have a task over here. If you go back to your models, they have another table, another model. So see how they are creating the relationship between task and user, and then see if you can figure out this code. Okay, same thing that we did. So it's going to be kind of similar syntax. See if you can figure out which model has which part. Okay, so this should be in your README, and then in your unsolved, make sure the config is correct. Password, and then I'm going to reinstall npm I. This is 13. Okay, npm I. So if you look at your routes folder, your routes are already done. So don't worry about the routes yet. We'll come back in the next activity. They're already done for you. We just have to add something later on. We'll see. Concentrate on the models and add your relationship in this one and in your author. Okay, again, the use case is an author can have multiple posts, but a post can only belong to one author. As I'm talking, I'm already giving the answer. So So what is the relationship between post and author? Belongs to, anybody disagrees with the relationship? Post belongs to author. So the relationship between post and author is post belongs to author. Okay. What does belongs to do? It puts the foreign key on the source. So it's going to take the ID from our author and put it in the post, and that works. What about author and post? What is the relationship between author and post? What is it? Has one. Anything else? Has many. Remember, author can write many posts. Okay, author can have many posts, but the post can belong to a single author. So an author has many posts. Okay, makes sense. All right. So you're going to create a relationship in your post model. You're going to create a relationship, and it's similar to this one. So you will say belongs to, you will put the name task or associate. So this is going to be post dot associate. Okay, and this goes before your return. All right, so you're going to say post dot associate, and it's going to be a function model. Okay, let's go back to our example. So post dot associate function models. Okay, I'm following the exact same thing. Right, why post? Because I'm in the post JS right now, so I'm using post. So I'm saying this is the association from the post side. Okay, the next would be models dot, instead of task, it's going to be post belongs to model dot author. Okay, so you're going to say post dot belongs to models dot author. What is it?
Models dot like the relationship. There's like models dot.
Oh, yeah, you can do models. What is this models referring to? This is referring to this, right? So yeah, you can use this, or you can use the variable that you created over here. They both are same. Yeah, it's up to you. So the one that they're using is that's coming from this. Your models, this if you console log this, it will have every model that you have created inside your models folder. So it's yeah. So both are correct. There's no difference. It just, well, there is different. The difference is you're using it from this one, or you're just using the variable that you're creating over here, because this is eventually going to land up inside there. So yeah, it's a little bit less confusing. This is a little bit you could eliminate this, but there's no possibility because author, you have to refer author over here. That's the reason. This is just more visibly, it's more easier to understand what I'm trying to say. That's why. Okay. Yes. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Thank you.
Does it matter though?
No, it doesn't matter. You just have to match, yeah. Okay. Let's go back over here. What does this extra thing means? Remember the foreign key? We were discussing with Sarah was asking a question. Can the foreign key be null or not? this is the restriction. You are saying that foreign key never be null. Every post has to have an author. Okay, at this point I can insert a null author, it's going to work, but if you add that extra step, it's going to add that validation. Okay, so basically in your next parameter goes all your validations, and one of them looks like it's a foreign key, so you can say where foreign, and spell foreign key for foreign, did I spell it right? Foreign key allow null. So this means the foreign key. This means the author ID cannot be null when you're trying to insert something, when you're trying to create.
So does that affect your form that you have?
Yes.
Like, you'll actually alert you
Yes.
of that
Yes.
author?
If you, well, I don't know if your form will alert you. You must have like a error, catching error, and show it. But you will get the response saying uh, cannot insert a null. Yes. When you create a post, you're going to get an error back, or you'll have an error in your console saying unable to insert because author is null or something, or author doesn't exist, the foreign key doesn't exist, some kind of error. Yes, you won't be able to insert. Okay, let's go to our authors. Authors is going to be has many, so same thing. Before your return, you will say author dot associate function models. Okay, this time you're going to say author dot has many. Okay, models dot post. Okay, so author has many posts, and then if you have any other restrictions. Okay, now in this case, there's another one which says on delete cascade. Okay, I'm going to copy this. Any guesses what this means? On delete cascade. Delete what? Ah, yes. So on delete cascade means if you delete an author from your any author from your table, please go and look into the table post and delete all the posts also. Okay, if you don't have this condition over here, what's going to happen? If you delete an author, it's going to go away from the table, from the author table. But the posts that are for that author will always exist, and they are called, usually they are called orphan rows. It's actually a word, and they just are there, right? They don't have any association. So this line over here, it says when the delete on author happens on this table, if you delete any author, go and find all the posts that belong to this author and go ahead and delete them. That's what this is saying. Okay? All right. So this should be the association created. And if you go ahead, run this, look into your MySQL table and see, you will see the foreign key relationship between those two tables. So if I do non server, okay, started. So if I go back to MySQL, let's refresh this. So now I have two tables, author and post. You can look at the descriptions, columns. Oh, it didn't create the ID. Let's go back here. Oh, there it is. Okay, so primary key, and then this ID is the foreign key which is coming into my post table. Again, this author ID I did not create, so this is automatically adding. And you can say the naming convention. You can change. There are options to change the naming convention, but we won't worry about that. But it's creating this relationship in your table. Let's go back here. All right. Any questions? Okay. Now the last one is how do you? Let's go ahead and run this one. API authors. So localhost 8080 /API authors. Let's go ahead and create some manage authors. Let's go ahead and create an author. Okay, successful. All right, let's go back to our post. Okay, it is my first post. Okay, select an author, submit. Okay, so I have all my association created, no errors, nothing. It's able to create that association. Okay, if you look at your tables now, you should have data between the two tables. So your post table should have a post ID. So if you go back here, select rows. So this is my data, and then I have ID. That's my ID, the author that I created. Okay. When you go back to your APIs, if you want to call your APIs for author, it gives me information about the author. If I do about post, okay, it's giving me information about my post, but an ID. It's not really helpful. I mean, it's good. I'm getting the data back, but it gives me ID back literally from my table. So it is only accessing my post table. Do you guys see that? Why? Because all these columns are in my post table, right? Um, it's okay, but what I really want is I want to combine the information. I want to join the two tables, right? I have the association, but when I call my APIs, I'm not getting the data from my author table. So instead of ID, I want to see the name. I want to see details from my authors table. For example, this thing. Okay, so my data set right now does not include information from my table, which I'm borrowing the ID. Okay, remember if you do an inner join in the SQL, you should be able to get author ID, author name, and any other information from that table. Okay, that is activity number 14. It's just literally one line. If you look at the README, okay, look at the README for number 14, and you can do it in the same one. You don't have to rerun different activity. Let's suppose all you need is just one keyword from that hint. So if I go back to open, let's look at activity number last one. Okay, and if you go to your README, okay, same thing. The hint over there. This is the only thing that you need to add in your code. Okay. So just spend 2 minutes, just look up this word and see in the SQLize if you can figure out how do we include the data. Okay, the problem over here is I'm getting my data back, but I'm getting all the rows from my post table. I want more information. I want who this author is, what is the name. So I need information from my other table to come all condensed, all together in my single data set. Okay, so I want the data from both tables in one call. Let's do this. I'm going to, so that you guys can see it, keep working on it. I'm just going to, or you can use this activity as well. It should be pretty easy to set up again. This is going to be password. It's going to delete all the data though. I think that's okay. So we are on number 14. Update the password. What else do I need to do? npmi. So let me go ahead and close this one. npm cd dot cd dot cd 14 unsolved npm I. Okay. Let's go ahead and run this. Oh, sorry. Node mom. Okay, I probably deleted everything from my database because this is the next activity. It should be fairly easy to see. It is 80. What am I typing? 80. Okay. All right. So no data. Let's go ahead and add our author again. Create an author. New post. This is my first post. Okay. Select an author. Submit. Ooh. Okay. What happened? Select this. So I have my author. Go to blog. Let's go back here. Yeah, that's my post. Okay. No need to change my. So let's change this to false so that it doesn't recreate it. Alright, let's go back here. It's okay, so there's my authors, there's my post associated with this author. But what I'm trying to do now is when I call the author, I want to have all the posts also listed over here. And then when I go to my post, I want all my author detail as well. Okay, if you look at the hint, it says use the keyword include. So if you go back to your routes, let's try the post first. Okay. Anybody figured out where do you have to add that? The word include. It's going to be after your where clause. So you have to say comma include square brackets, and then what are you trying to include? I'm trying to include all the information from my authors table also. And it's going to bring that information because I have created that relationship. So you're going to mention, that's it. So now if you go back to your authors API, you see, it brought you all the information. So based on the association, it makes a join and gives you all the information about that author as well. Okay, now if I want to add that to my authors, so what's happening right now is if I refresh, it just gives me author information, but nothing about the post that this author has written what post. So in your code, you would do the same thing. Okay, and you're going to include this time, same thing to include, but this time you would include post. So find all authors. Let me put it in a new line so that it's kind of easier to see. Okay, in my find all option, we'll say include and then db.post. That's all. Okay, now if you go back and run your author, okay, right now I don't have any information. Now it's going to give me, why is it an array? Because of the association. I'm saying an author can have many posts, so that's why it's giving you an array. Now, if you go ahead and create a couple of more posts, you're going to get more than one. So if I go back here and I create a new post and say this is my second post, okay, same author, submit, successful. What is going to happen over here? It's an array. It's going to give me the second post as well. Again, why? Because both of these posts belong to this author. Now, if you have a new author, run it, you'll have another object with an array of posts. Okay, now if you go back to your post API, it has two posts and both of them belong to the same author. Okay, now there are two parts to it. First is creating the relationship, and the second part is, so the first part was creating the relationship, and that goes in your models folder. Okay, in your author and post, we created this relationship. Okay, both places. The second portion is when you are creating your API routes, you need to do this part, include and what data you are expecting. So if I'm doing a post, I want the data from my author also. Okay. This statement, SQLize recognizes it and it's going to bring all the data just like this. Okay, it's going to give you that. Now you're going to get this data in your UI. You can parse it. You can pull out what are the posts that belong to the user and show it on your front end. Okay, the same thing in your author routes. You're saying include the data from the post. Okay, again, the only reason this is working because you have this relationship in your author and post. This is not going to work if you don't have that relationship correctly. Okay, this is just saying bring me, when you're bringing me author data, bring me the data that corresponds to this author from my post table also. Okay, but what is important is this relationship should be there.
So if you wanted to include another table, you just make that
Yeah, see, this is an array, so you can, yeah, you can keep adding error, different tables, but make sure you have the association over there. Okay. All right, so this is the end of the second portion of the program. Saturday, we are going to kick off project number 2. Again, these 3 weeks were probably the most challenging of the whole course. I will not lie to you. After project 2 is over, we'll do MongoDB and React. They're okay, but I don't think they're as challenging as these 3 things. Okay, but make sure you understand SQLize and MySQL because that is mandatory on in your project 2. All right, we'll talk about groups and all that stuff on Saturday. Remember, Saturday is the Gilbert what is it, Gilbert parade. So I have to be here, so I'll be here. Preferences, try not to stream if it is not required because I'm going to be creating groups. I want you guys to be in the groups and we'll be doing some activities, setting up your project, team members, and all that stuff, and coming up with ideas. Huh? Okay? I will see you guys on Saturday.